Hi, my name is Lacy Kuehl, official advocate for Drive for Diabetes Awareness. This month is Diabetes Awareness Month, and it is a time for us to come together and spread knowledge and support for everybody battling diabetes. Today, we're going to share Jacob Savino's story, who has faced both diabetes and addiction and has learned valuable lessons along the way. So, we hope his journey will inspire you guys to help encourage others who may be struggling with their lives in many other ways as well.
I'm Jacob Sabino. I was born in Inverness, Florida. Always loved cooking and drawing. When I found out I had diabetes, I was about 24 years old. Both of my legs were numb for hours at a time.
He didn't know why. He thought he was just sitting wrong on him or something. And so we brought him to a doctor, and the doctor's like, well, we've got bad news. And the doctor told him, you have type 1 diabetes.
He said my blood sugars were really high. They gave me a bunch of fluids and put me on an insulin drip. I left the hospital and I went home, even though there were a bunch of doctors around me saying I could die if I went home. I was just so scared and I didn't know how to process that. So I just went home.
A week later, we went to the doctor and we all went there and talked to him. And they're like, look, it's type 1 diabetes. He's inherited with it. He'll never get rid of it. All he can do is control it.
There was a lot of depression that came with that. I knew I had to take care of myself better, but I didn't really know how to exactly. Well, I found out about Drive for Diabetes Awareness a few years after I got it. My dad owned the restaurant.
We just acquired a restaurant that I worked at for 26 years. I'm a real big fan of NASCAR. I love all motorsports. I mean, I love watching and everything else. The guy I went to high school with, his name is Chris Ham. Chris came into the restaurant after we acquired it because I seen on Facebook where he'd raced legend cars and I wanted to do a sponsorship. And I was talking to him. I was like, do you still own the Legends? He's like, yeah. He goes, matter of fact, we're racing at the Citrus County Speedway this weekend. If you got a chance, come out this Saturday, come watch us race. We've got 2 cars. We've got Mason and a girl named Lacy. So I went to the pits and they were all standing there and I met Mason and then I met Lacy. Then I looked over and I noticed Drive for Diabetes. And it's kind of cool how they did it. They had the number 4 for the 4. And I'm like, that's pretty cool. I'm like, what's that all about? So Brent come and talk to me about it. And I said, we just found out my son has type 1 diabetes. And he's like, oh, well, he had the whole mission statement on the back of his trailer, which was really cool. We had all written out. I seen how passionate he was about it. Before I met Brent, I really didn't know what the symptoms were. We learned more from Brent than we did doctors. It's a good thing that he knows all this, but he learned it from tragedy himself. And that's not a way you want to learn something from tragedy, but he is out there helping people to understand it. And him and Lacy both are, like I said, very passionate about it. Told him, I was like, all right, y'all got a sponsor. First, like, hey, so you in a restaurant? He goes, maybe we can come up next time we're in Citrus County. If we're bringing the cars up, Chris brings his cars up. We bring the Drive for Diabetes set up. He goes, oh, I got a whole setup and everything else. I'm like, awesome, let's do it. An hour and a half before Brent and Lacy showed up, Jacob went into DKA. And the hospital was right by the restaurant. And when Lacy and Brent showed up to set up, because they had a really cool setup. He's got a whole canopy and he's got the car. And he's Lacy in her driver's suit and everything else. And Brent was out there talking to people about their cause and Drive for Diabetes and everything else. And so after I got done cooking, they started to pack up. And then Jacob and Lisa walked up.
I came back from the hospital after DKA.
Jacob told him why he was in a hospital. And Lacy pulled him aside. And she was really upset with Jacob because he was drinking and having diabetes. Brent's like, hey, do you ever pee on this strip to check? And we're like, what are you talking about, pee on a strip? That's where you check your ketones, see how dark the strip is. And we're like, what the heck's that? And he's like, no one's ever told you about peeing on a strip? We knew nothing about them pee strips. No, not one doctor ever told us about them. That's an early warning sign that you need to get to the hospital. And he's like, I'm going to run to Walgreens right now and go grab some. Brent runs to Walgreens, grabs these strips to pee on. And Brent tells him, he goes, if you're in the purple, you need to get to the hospital immediately. So we knew nothing about that. Not one doctor said anything about these strips. Nothing. Nada. And Brent's the first one who brought it up to Jacob. It has actually saved his life a couple of times because Jacob went pee on the strip and realized he needed to go to the hospital. That told me right there that I sponsored the right people because they were so passionate about it. Brent was constantly keeping in touch with me, asking me how Jacob was and everything else and giving me more information on it, on what to do about diabetes and on how they can control it. And Brent was constantly asking, well, how's Jacob doing? How's Jacob doing?
I'm still learning how to control my sugars. They're getting better than they used to be. When I first found out, I didn't know how to do insulin or anything like that. Control the carbs I intake and the sugars I intake. Adjusting was really hard. I've always had a problem with depression even before the diabetes, but after I found out, it made that a little worse because I couldn't stay focused. I started drinking about a year before I found out I had diabetes, or around there. And yes, when I found out, I started drinking even more, which it did help me not think about it, but also at the same time, it made my diabetes and my blood sugars way worse. And I went into DKA well over 20 times because of it. My mother and father have been very supportive, especially with the drinking and trying to get me to stop. Also making sure I checked my sugar and took my insulin the best way I knew how to, and watch what I eat. Well, the best advice that I've gotten so far that has really helped me with dealing with diabetes and addiction at the same time was, even though it's kind of depressing dealing with that stuff, but it doesn't have to be always. I just like to try and be as happy as I can. That's always helped me, is then it makes me want to stay focused and take care of my sugars and not drink. Even just taking it one day at a time is basically how I deal with it. I think the best thing that I would be able to do is point people in the right direction, especially towards Drive for Diabetes awareness and all the information they have.
You don't know what it's like until your loved one has it or you have it yourself, because this is a very bad disease. I mean, if you have a disease where you can lose fingers, you can lose your leg, I mean, it can kill you. That's a horrible, horrible disease. Because when you hear somebody's got diabetes, you're like, oh, it's because he's overweight. Now everything changes once you actually encounter it and you deal with it on a daily basis of what diabetes does to you.
Jacob's story is a powerful reminder that diabetes is not just about managing your blood sugar levels. It's about managing your mental health, finding support, and staying positive one day at a time. If you or someone you know are experiencing these symptoms, such as excessive thirst, frequent urination, or sudden weight loss, please make sure that you take action and go get tested for diabetes. Together we can spread Jacob's story and make a difference and make an impact this Diabetes Awareness Month. Remember that Drive for Diabetes Awareness is always here to help, and stay informed, stay healthy, and let's support one another. Remember to check, don't guess, it may not be the flu. Thank you guys.